If I lost all of my progress tomorrow and had to start again from zero, this is precisely how I'd lose 20 pounds as fast as possible. This is not an entirely hypothetical scenario for me. 10 years ago, I was hitting weigh-ins at 87, 88, the upper 80 kilo range. Today, I'm sitting pretty at 73 kilos. So here's what I'd do if I was starting from scratch tomorrow, obviously knowing everything that I now know today. And the first tip, I got you. I got you on the old clickbait here, didn't I? I actually wouldn't try and lose 20 pounds as fast as possible, as the title goes. Got ya, because I know, I'm sure you do as well, absolutely, or rather exactly where that kind of mindset goes. In fact, I'm going for the very unsexy, Mr. Realistic, Mr. Pragmatic, slow and steady wins the race mentality instead of the nonsense crash dieting that I was doing 10 years ago, going up and down the scale. That's when I wanted to lose weight as fast as possible. Look where it got me. The adoption of extreme strategy and very all or nothing thinking around food and exercise, that's never ever sustainable. Instead, this time, I'd be going into this thinking, I don't want to lose 20 pounds as fast as possible here. I want to lose 20 pounds so that I actually keep it off this time. What's going to give me the best possible roadmap for success to do that? That will be my mentality. That's going to naturally allow me to adopt much more smarter, sensible, long-term strategy here. It's unsexy, it's tortoise over the hair, but honestly, this is absolutely, it's my video. This is my mentality. This is what I do. This is what I do to this day. I think if it's not going to stick, what's the point? Just can it, bin it. If I'm not going to do this exercise strategy for the long term, what's the point? Can I sustain it? Can I not sustain it? That's the filter through which I adopt all of my strategy. You catch my drift here. So it's unsexy, it's unfancy, but I would try and park that little instant gratification gremlin inside of me that wants immediate results right here, right now, because I know that's going to lead to a much healthier long-term anti-rebound mentality for approaching this weight loss phase. Step number 2, to honor that slow and steady but sustainable thinking, I would be following a moderate calorie deficit instead of bloody well starving myself like I used to back in the day, driving my calories so low that I was deprived, I was hungry, I was lethargic, I was fatigued, low energy. Remember driving my calories so low, actually unknowingly at one point, that my libido started going. That's not a nice thing at 21 years old. And so just the wariness of the signs and signals that I'm following a very, very aggressive calorie deficit. The first being obviously rapid weight loss, which you feel in one sense, wow, that's amazing, that's fantastic, but it's not without these radical, horrible consequences that are all massive red flags when it comes to running things through the filter like I've just spoken about of, can I stick to this? Will this be sustainable? Heck no. For a couple of weeks, maybe at a push, and you're just using so much willpower and force and discipline when really what you want is genuine lifestyle habit and behavior change to make this 20-pound weight loss phase actually stick, or however much you've got to lose. And so the second pillar here in my strategy would be, no, I want to be in a calorie deficit. I understand that's the difference maker to losing weight, and just eating healthy food, that doesn't really work if you're not in a calorie deficit. So I'll be conscious. I need to be in a calorie deficit. We'll talk about counting calories, whether that's necessary, because I've got an maybe semi-controversial opinion on that. We'll talk about that later. But I would know, no, I need a calorie deficit to lose weight, but I'm going to make sure it's quite a small, sensible one. For me, that's going to look like, initially as a starting point, like 300, 350 calories, which for a dude who's very active, again, that's semi-controversial. Some people say, go to 500, right? Go to 600, get that weight off. Again, I don't want this to be too fast that it's really, really unsustainable, that I'm flirting with hunger. Life in a calorie deficit isn't easy at the best of times. I don't want frequently throughout the day to be fighting loads of genuine physical hunger as well. No, thank you very much. Of course, this bodes the question, and this is now step number 3, what's the diet methodology, the nutrition protocol that I'd adopt and then utilize, again, that very moderate calorie deficit? As you know, if you've been following me for some time here, I'm an advocate for plant-based eating. It's high fiber content, it's low caloric density. I have an ethical connection to this way of eating as well. I can't lie to you. That is part of my motive to be transparent about that. But just examining the nutrition here and its value from a weight loss perspective, that high fiber content, the self-limiting nature of foods that are high in fiber, and some of the other things that are rich in plant foods, it's low caloric density. This is honestly the closest thing I've found nutritionally to a cheat code for weight loss, because the fullness and satisfaction you can get from a varied, well-balanced, let me stress that, plant-based diet, while still maintaining a calorie deficit, for me, frankly, it's incomparable. And I've tried a lot of stuff. 18 through 21, I was Mr. Experimental, right, with food. Let's be very clear about that. I'm pretty conservative in the rest of my life, but that's it. And so for me, it's the plant-based diet. That'd be the way I choose. Let's make this crystal clear. I ain't gonna be judgy, I ain't gonna be preachy here. I ate meat for 21 years. You're not gonna see any, I'll try not to anyway, finger-wagging moral high ground nonsense from me. That's utterly counterproductive to the vegan cause. I can't stand it when I see vegans of a poor communication disposition, does that make sense? Ish. Doing just that. Don't like it. So I'm gonna try not to go down that route. It's not my style anyway. It's not productive, and that's just not how you speak to people. But let's make this clear. Whatever diet you adopt, my advice would be, if I'm in a position to give it, got to be in that calorie deficit. And more specifically, a small one. Step 4, I said we'd talk about this. I would be calorie conscious rather than using calorie counting apps to track every single calorie macro I consumed. I have numerous reasons for this, but actually the main one being, as a beginner, I would find it unnecessary. As a beginner starting from scratch, I would find it not just unnecessary, but potentially quite overwhelming. And the natural follow-up question to this from the pro-calorie counting crowd might quite understandably be, hold on a second, Ryan, if you're not actually tracking, and you're talking all this nonsense about being calorie conscious, which sounds a little bit woo-woo, doesn't it? Well, how on earth do you know with any degree, any trustworthy degree of certainty that what you're doing is productive and it's going to lead to weight loss on the scale every week? Well, quite simply by checking the bloody scale every week as feedback system. And of course, there's the risk there that you might go a prolonged period of time in the unknown about whether or not you're in a calorie deficit, and sure, that is one of the consequences of not being so meticulous with tracking. I accept that. But again, I would take that rough with the smooth as a beginner as being worthwhile to prevent the overwhelm and the bloody borderline neuroticism that can come with tracking this stuff, especially for one's, as a beginner, one's perhaps naturally poor relationship with food. And so for me, I would know that I was in a calorie deficit from what the scale was doing. And if it wasn't leading to a nice steady 1 to 2 pounds per week loss, 4 to 8 pounds per month, I would tweak my plan accordingly. Giant elephant in the room here. That scale feedback system without tracking calories meticulously is only helpful to you if your diet is relatively repetitive, which is another core principle we're going to talk about a little bit later on, another philosophy of mine. But I think, if there's a decent amount of repetition in the diet, I think that's enough. I think that's enough to look at what the scale is doing at the end of every week and then integrate that information into tweaks or just maintaining the status quo of your current plan. Because if your meals are quite repetitive and the scale doesn't show a loss and you hit a plateau, you can work out what to chip away at from each or one of your meals every single day, or what to do at least with exercise strategy, for example, as well. Second to that, if you're all over the place with your food intake and you're not tracking your calories, then yeah, you're asking for trouble. Then when you look at that scale, you've got no baseline. There's no foundation to your diet to where you can go, well, I'll just pull this lever now, I'll just try this, I'll tweak this, because you're all over the shop, right? Every day you've got a massively different intake, so that's really important to stress. But that is why I would be quite confident that I can simply be calorie conscious. What do I mean by that? Some understanding of the principles of caloric density and how foods come together. I'm not saying ignoring calories. I'm not saying, obviously, I just spoke about them. I'm not saying calories don't matter, quite obviously, but just not meticulously tracking them. Having rough ballparks in your mind, understanding I need roughly a 500 calorie meal here. That's gonna do me nicely for an over. So I'm not saying complete ignorance, head in the sand about this whole calorie issue, but just going throughout the day through this consciousness, all right, this is about a 450 calorie meal, okay, and just banking that information. And obviously, the more weeks that you do this, the more better you get at eyeballing, understanding, going deeper with this stuff. I just think that tracking every day as a beginner, I don't know, man. Don't like it. Step number 5. So we've already decided we've got the slow and steady wins the race mentality. Therefore, we're going to follow a moderate, not aggressive calorie deficit. I've already decided that me personally, I'm doing it with the plant-based methodology. And I've decided not to actually track my calories meticulously, but rather be calorie conscious. How do I take those ideas and start packaging them now so I can understand what my daily diet is going to look like? Well, first important insight on this is I just love this idea of 5 to 6 core meals. Like, even though I'm not trying to lose weight to this day, and that weight loss phase that we're hypothetically speaking about again here is long behind me, still to this day, 10 years eating a plant-based diet, even longer into health and fitness, I still really every week probably only eat like 5 or 6 different meals. Call me boring. Suggest that there's a lack of variety there. Fair enough. Decent criticisms. But honestly, for consistency, this is so crucial for me. I don't need an endless list of ingredients when I go shopping. Don't need loads of stuff in the kitchen. I'm not throwing out rotting veg at the end of every week because I can't get to everything because there's 20 different meals in my diet. 5 to 6 core meals is all I really need to get all the nutrients I need, frankly. Of course, more variety is better as a rule of thumb, but all the nutrients I need. And 2, frankly, to just enjoy my diet while still keeping it relatively practical and repeatable. And so, yeah, I don't want the endless cookbooks and thousands of recipes that are pinned on Instagram, what I eat in a day videos. People are always commenting on my YouTube channel, can't you make what I eat in a day videos? You used to do those. I love what I eat. Haven't you seen enough? I sound brutal, but haven't you seen enough bloody what I eat in a day videos? There's thousands of hours of this nonsense content online. I sound so patronizing, don't I? It's not nonsense content. It has value. It has its place, but it's damn well overemphasized. Everyone wants to, oh, show me your food. It's not about that. It's understanding the deeper strategy and then doing the habit and behavioral mindset work to allow this stuff to click. That's what we need to pay respect to, not, which sauce do you use? These are all the minutiae, finer details. Of course, you have to make your food taste good. These are important technical questions about taste, texture, putting together a good meal. But the fundamental strategy is more important. And one of those principles is 5 to 6 core meals every single week. That's going to really allow me to chip away at that 20-pound target so nicely and just so consistently because I'm not stretching myself too thin. How would those 5 to 6 core meals break down though? This is step number 6, I think now. Well, I like the standard, again, call me conventional, Mr. Boring, 3 meals and 1 afternoon snack structure. And I much prefer this over any weird fasting windows. I'm such a big breakfast person. I love getting up, always have, and crushing a big breakfast, whether it's my tofu scramble, my muesli bowls. At the moment, I'm just plain old oatmeal. I love that. Actually, this morning I had my yogurt bowl, so I'm enjoying those as well. I've been doing chocolate mug cake, protein mug cake for breakfast recently, and that just feels so weird having something quite desserty that's still really clean for breakfast. That feels amazing. So yeah, I'm not doing any intermittent fasting stuff. Look, I'm not going to bash it completely. It has its place, it has merit, it can be a very useful tool to people, I understand this. But honestly, if you're eating a low calorie density plant-based diet anyway, full of fibrous foods, if your goal is to be in a moderate, not an extreme calorie deficit, if your goal is to do something practical, and maybe you find it particularly hard to push back that first meal or unnatural, let's say, to your rhythm and routine, of course, there's arguments you can change that and you'll get used to it and your appetite will adjust, etc., etc., fair enough. But let's say if it doesn't suit your preferences and you're thinking, what's going to give me low-hanging fruit mentality? What is the best possible diet that's going to help me stay consistent? What's going to be the easiest thing to do that eliminates all my little gremlin nonsense excuses? Well, certainly not going to 2 p.m. without food. That ain't going to help, is it? And then hitting 2 p.m. and being absolutely ravenous. Again, let's stress here, calorie deficit. This is the main driver of weight loss success that you need to focus on. And whether you eat 5 small meals per day, 3 snacks and 3 main meals and a snack like I'm proposing here, or you backload all your food to later in the day with something like a fasting, intermittent fasting window. That is preference, but really, again, the calorie deficit thing is the big driver here. So for me, it's 3 meals and a snack over any weird semi-extreme, you call it extreme, fasting windows. Not my preference. Again, let's just keep it sensible. Let's keep it practical. Sick of this, like, everything has to be a hack. Everything in the weight loss world, the diet world, has to be something extreme, a new thing. It's just, nah, just calorie deficit every day. Just be normal, because that's the thing you can actually stick to. Because when life gets messy and you're doing something weird or extreme with your diet, falls apart like that. Step 7, I want balanced macros over carb or fat phobia. Everyone loves protein. It's like the sacred, protected macronutrient that's probably vastly overemphasized in the conversation about macronutrients. I must say it's important, but so are the others. Where people do get really tribal, polarized, scared, doubtful, understandably so, because there's a lot of information and conflicting opinion about this online, especially, and from your doctor, never mind just online in the real world. Carb, hydrate, and fat. Don't know the long pause on the O-hydrate. Maybe he's Irish. Carb, O-hydrate. No, poor one. Bad joke. Dad joke. If ever I've made a dad joke, that was it. But carb or fat phobia. Again, all 3 macros are really important. They all do different things. Yes, you could technically live without one or the other. You'd be fine, but what's fine compared to thriving? What's fine compared to impeccable blood work? What's fine compared to good cognitive and physical performance in your life? I want balanced macros. I understand that they all do a slightly different thing. When I say balanced, I don't mean equalized. That's absolutely what I do not mean. What I mean is balance for you and your goals and your day-to-day. And for me, and for the vast majority of my slim and sustain people, this is going to be about 50-60%, would you believe, carbohydrate intake, then around 15 to 20% fat and the rest protein. See, if you want to package this really simply, 60% carbohydrates, 20% of calories coming from fat, 20% calories coming from protein. This is the formula that frankly has changed my life. This is a really lovely combo. Again, it's the calorie deficit thing, let's be clear. But secondary to that, this macronutrient profile has been really useful to me. It's virtually what I've used with all of my nearly 600 clients through Vegan Slim and Sustain over the past 5 or 6 years now as well, to great success. Of course, it is relative. So there's times when I might put a client more on 15% of calories coming from fat, or 22% for one reason or another that might be to do. I'm not even going to get into it because there's so many. I'll be opening a can of worms by discussing all the ins and outs of that and giving all the different scenarios there. But balanced macros, no weird, again, all the extreme nonsense. I need to cut out my carbs. No, and for goodness sakes, carbohydrates are a macronutrient. They're not a food group. So when you go, I need to cut out my carbs like pizza and potato chips, they are foods. They are not macronutrients. They are foods that, yes, contain carbohydrates, but a bunch of other nonsense in calories and oil and additives and whatever as well. And you just reducing them to carbs gives this false impression that carbs are inherently bad when we can simultaneously look at fruit and we can look at whole grains, we can look at vegetables, all of these foods which are predominantly made up of the carbohydrate macronutrient. Are we going to say these are unhealthy and that they're not weight loss friendly like pizza is just because carbs? Step 7, maybe step 8, I don't know, I'm lost in all my ranting here. 90% compliance plus 10% flexibility instead of any textbook perfectionism. There's all kinds of little rule bending things I do from the top educators, practitioners, the figureheads in the plant-based space, and by extension, lots of, a top keto teacher might look at my diet and go, come on, Rye, there's a few processed foods there, that's a bit naughty. But things like the bran flakes and using whole wheat tortilla wraps and throwing me smashed chickpea wraps into there and a bit of avocado and some veggies and whatnot. Things like rye and sourdough bread, love my rye bread. Trying to think what else, but all these maple syrup, some people would say, oh, that's egregious. Stevia. Some people would say that's egregious. I've got no problem with it. Building these things into my diet on a pretty regular basis, some people would say that's treason, that's heresy, that's not strict whole foods 365 days of the year. And actually, that would be my argument. Is 365 whole foods only days of the year? Is that really realistic for the long term? Now, again, if we're just looking at the 20 pounds like a project, like a temporary project, I've got to tick this off my list, I've got to check this 20 pounds goal off my list, then yeah, maybe I would say, well, whole foods is going to be best for that. Again, it's going to come down to calories, but in terms of bang for buck, in terms of maybe things like satisfaction, I can say, yeah, whole foods is best. And then maybe the thermic effect of that whole foods as well, having a secondary effect on metabolic rate, etc., etc., etc. Whole foods, yeah, that would be best, but I need this to be realistic, otherwise it's not built to last. And I said to a client very recently, look, bluntly put, in the first couple of weeks of our time together, yeah, you should be trying to manage your environment very carefully and preparing as many meals as you can from home. But really, you graduate from that kind of on or off dieting, those two default modes where you're either doing the diet perfectly, everything's disciplined, managed, controlled, structured, or just totally off the rails, you graduate from that paradigm the moment that you are able to start making healthy choices out there in the real world. When you get invited to a wedding, when you go out to eat, and you still make semi-sensible choices. Or maybe you don't, maybe you do have something naughty from time to time, but you make the promise that it's a slip up and not a spiral. Right? And you get back on your diet, you get back on track from the next meal. Those are the behavioral changes, and the skills in terms of knowing what to look at on the, knowing what to pick from the menu is going to be the best option calorically and health-wise for you. The skills and the habits you developed in those moments, in the real world, who would have thought it? Who would have thunk it? Like, it needs to be real world, it needs to be practical, it needs to be sustainable. And these things are far more important than I think, than any 100% strict whole foods perfectionism and the benefits that that may yield versus 90% whole foods. Does that make sense? That extra 10% for me, the juice isn't worth the squeeze if what gets compromised is the real world adaptability and flexibility of this stuff to make it stick. You are never gonna be, I'll say this really bluntly, I mean, there might be 2 or 3 people on the earth that are just hermits or monks living in the mountains who can make this work. But the vast majority of us, if our success is predicated on always being in the kitchen to cook, we're screwed. It's not practical. The next tip, I would be really big on slow go exercise versus high intensity interval training, crazy workouts, group fitness, anything like this. Again, these intense exercises have their place. I really like sport as well, so there is a bit of inner contradiction in me when I talk about this, I think. But actually for weight loss, I actually find slow go, keeping heart rate quite low, gentle forms of movement, I actually find this better. Because one, it allows me to manage appetite spikes that I get with those otherwise very intense workouts, and that's far more easy, actually, for me personally, to be in a calorie deficit. But this is where I think that sort of, more is better when it comes to exercise because you're burning more calories. I understand the rationale, but I think practically speaking, there's a lot of us for whom actually it's much easier to control our appetite and therefore stay in a calorie deficit every day when the exercises are actually a bit on the lower side. Not sedentary, of course, that's not what I'm saying, but a bit on the lower side. And so for me, I would actually just do what I now do today, which is about 8, 9, 10,000 steps. I live in a moderate-sized European city, so it's so effortless. This is why I love it, because it just naturally slips into my routine. So effortlessly do about 10,000 steps most days. And then I would do my 3 or 4 sort of strength movement workouts per week like I do now. I'd just do the same thing again. I suppose if I was starting from scratch, I would actually, in fact, take that back. If I was starting from scratch, again, low-hanging fruit mentality like I spoke about earlier, I would just be doing walking. I would get myself in the gym eventually and start doing the strength movements because I think in time you should do walking, a little bit of cardio, a little bit of strength, so you're quite multifaceted, maybe something to do with mobility. But instead of biting off more than I can chew early on and getting burnout, risking injury, etc., slow go. I'd start with just the walking, just gentle, and then I'd graduate to stuff in time. So I'm not risking injury. Again, I'm repeating myself, but appetite going wild. And so, yeah, this is, again, the antithesis of that fast, gung-ho. I tricked you, I really tricked you hard in hindsight with this title, saying as fast as possible. If I wanted to lose it as fast as possible, I'd be doing all the fitness classes, I'd be doing spinning 5 times a week, burning 500-600 calories in a session. It ain't worth it to me. Because yeah, I'll make more progress in weeks 1 and 2. I'll lose like 8 pounds in weeks 1 and 2 alone. Where am I by weeks 3? Where am I by weeks 4? When I've got the slow go mentality, I outlast and therefore over the long term outperform that little speedy, I've got to get the vacation body in 8 weeks mentality. And lastly, it should be step 10, but who knows anymore? I'm focused on habit and genuine behavior change. I've talked about this throughout, so it doesn't need too much explanation here. You'll be glad to hear as we wrap up. Over that sort of quick fix diet hopping, let me smash the GLP-1s, let me get on the Ozempic mentality. I want my behavior to change, and I'm going to understand that that is critical, and key to all of this. Everything else we've spoken about today, frankly, is secondary if you can't actually stick to this and change over the long term. I want the kind of habits and mindset that automatically pull me back on track when I start losing focus, when I start stalling, when I hit that plateau. I don't want that quit mentality in me anymore. I don't want that, again, that instant gratification that I've spoken about throughout to trip me up by getting my head turned with, oh, I've got to do this now, or my friend is losing loads of weight on the potato diet, which someone mentioned again recently, and I was like, oh, haven't we stopped talking about the damn potato reset diet thing now? Just stop all of this extreme stuff. It feeds this little cretin inside of you that's like, it's You're taking the gluttony you have with food and you're applying it to like body and physique and your health and physique transformation. You're like, now, more, now. It's just the wrong energy. It's the wrong energy for long term. I'm repeating myself an awful lot in this video. You catch my drift. I'm focused on habit and behavior change. And because I'm focused on genuine habit behavior change, I am trying to be patient. Goodness forbid. I don't want sexy, I don't want fast, I don't want extreme, I don't want the most I don't just want to put a little photo on social media of my 6-week transformation. I'm not interested in that. Show me where I'm at in 1 year's time, 2 years' time. I said before, people were like, that's a really good line. I can't remember, it's not mine, I stole it from someone else. Maybe they weren't talking about weight loss. I think they were talking about money actually, but I stole it. I said, actually, that's true with weight loss as an anecdote. What is it? Oh, yeah, most people overestimate how much weight they can lose in a month and underestimate how much they can lose in a year. Yeah, bingo, that's your project. Get out of this. To loop this back to the first point in this video, get out of this, I've got to lose 20 pounds as fast as possible mentality and start thinking, how am I going to be slim for life? And that is, ladies and gents, the exact strategy that I teach inside Vegan Slim and Sustain, right? Slow and steady progress over the extreme diet hopping crash diet mentality. Simple plant-based meals you can actually stick to instead of fancy and elaborate, pretentious vegan recipes, endless recipes. And most importantly, like I've just finished on, the kinds of habits and mindsets that you can actually live with instead of all the extremes, the fasting, the fasting windows, the fitness burnouts from the HIIT classes, calorie counting apps. I want this to not feel like I'm on a diet. Rather, not to sound too trite and cliche, this is the way I live. And it's that feeling, I love when my clients say similar things to me. It's that feeling of, wow, this is actually working and it feels for once really doable. That's the big aha moments. That's the big breakthrough. That would be the feeling I'm trying to achieve. That's far more important, as I say, than the 20 pounds loss. And that is the Slim and Sustain way. If that's the kind of approach you want to follow, I'll leave a link, of course, in the description box down below. You can check that out and go and learn more there. I'll see you in the next video. I hope you found this useful. Comments and questions below. As always, see you soon.